Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. We made it. Laura Bradburn, Lawrence Conley and myself were here to talk about Celtic versus St Mirren. It's Ange Ball. It's all about Celtic. You know, after the game, Laura, we've got a lot of other discussion points to cover in relation to Lee Griffiths, in relation to Rangers tickets, and also Neil Lennon once again getting into a studio to blame other people for his own failings. The team has been announced. Laura, what's your thoughts first up?
I've been trying to look around, and I might be being ignorant. People can feel free to tell me in the comments. They always do. But surprised not to see Forrest in unless there's a knock, unless one of you guys can confirm it. Obviously means that Eddie's going back through the middle, which what I actually thought gave us a different option at the end of the game against AZ Alkmaar, but I'm not sure how I feel about starting the game that way. My preference, as we've spoken about before, would always be that Furuhashi would be through the middle. But glad to see Abada back in. He seems to have got over whatever knock was niggling him, and quite happy with the team as it is, to be honest, and on the back of obviously Juranovic coming in as well, so the squad is getting stronger.
Something else to discuss in a wee bit more depth and detail at the end of the game, Laura, will be the incoming right back as well to challenge Anthony Ralston for the right back berth. Lawrence Conley, you had plenty of time to digest that team whilst you were waiting on the arrival of A Celtic State of Mind's host today. What do you make of it? Because, I mean, one of the big things we've been talking about, and Russell Boyce brought it up the other day, actually, was the fact that, you know, when we're playing most domestic opposition at Celtic Park, we need to basically play an all-out attacking formation. It's something we were crying out for under Neil Lennon at times. It looks as though Ange is more than happy to do that today.
Yeah, listen, it's refreshing. It's something a lot of supporters have been saying, even get back over the past 5, 6, 7 years. You know, why aren't we playing two up front? Why aren't we playing more attacking? Why are we, because a defensive midfield that sits so deep? You know, it's St Mirren we're playing. Goodwin sets his teams up well, but we've got to go for it, haven't we? We're at home, and we'll expect more goals. It's handball after all, isn't it? We're going to expect to score 2, 3, 4 goals today.
Well, we're in a groove, Lawrence. Why would you hinder that in any way, shape or form? Unless, like Laura says, you might have an injury or two, or indeed you wish to manage the squad, because players like Forrest and McGregor, generally in the last decade, if they've been fit, they've played. So if you do get an opportunity, and I don't see Ross County in the Cup as an opportunity to rest a player. That's what happened last season under Neil Lennon, but we'll get to him at the end of the game. And he rests Callum McGregor against Ross County, and we get bounced at the Cup 2-0. Today's the kind of day that you can afford, or you should be able to afford, resting someone like James Forrest, particularly after his exertions during the week.
Yeah, I mean, he's coming back from injury, isn't he? So I don't know how much is taken out of him. I've not heard that he's got an knock, so I'm assuming that he has just been rested. We're just managing him back in, full fitness. Same with McCarthy's not in the squad today, but maybe that's part of it, seeing how fit he is in a game, and maybe he's still got a wee bit to go. So they're saying, well, you don't mean the squad today, we'll just kind of work on fitness again for a week or so. So listen, he's starting to put his squad together. He's given it. We've got options now. As you said, they're in the groove. We're scoring goals. I fancy Tony Ralston for another today to see, if he can keep up his form. He's definitely going to be feeling the pressure now to keep that shot, isn't he?
I think it's a good thing. I really, really do. We've always spoken about having 2 quality players for every position on the park. We've been lacking in various areas of the team, Laura. One such area would be the goalkeeper. What Joe Hart has brought to the Celtic side in terms of, we know all about his experience, Laura, but I think we've seen elements of what we have brought in Joe Hart just in the last game in Europe there against AZ, because what he did was not only made some saves at important times of the game, at 0-0 he makes a save off the post, at 1-0 after Greg Taylor had sold the jerseys he makes a save. That side of things, we've been missing that since Foster left Celtic, absolutely no doubt about it, where you can rely on the keeper to pull a save out the bag, but also the leadership qualities, Laura. that he's shown. And it's just, it's something that we've missed for so long, a commanding figure that can lead from the back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always one. I never like to pretend I didn't say something. So my opinion of Joe Hart when he came in, as I said on Twitter, as I said on here, was a negative one. I thought we were potentially, until I heard the supposed rumours about his decrease in salary, I thought we were perhaps paying over the top for a name, for somebody who has had a bit of a reputation of having a bit of an arrogant personality in the past, and to me could be a bit of a divisive character in the dressing room if he came in and started acting big Mick or whatever. But I have to say, he's totally made me eat my words. He's totally changed my mind as far as the effectiveness of his games so far. I still think he's got the issues with footwork and things like that, but as far as shot stopping and things like that, he's far, far ahead anything we had in goal last season or the start of this season. And he also, like you say, is showing the leadership skills and things like that in the dressing room, presumably, and on the pitch that we've been sorely missing. The other interesting thing, as I said to Tony and Jim yesterday, was he actually provided us a wee insight into a slightly different side of Ange as well, because what you saw there was, and I've been a big fan of this, but we've seen Ange come in and be very uncompromising, very forthright, very stubborn in his views, and I think you need that to be a success. But what I think Joe Hart showed was, if somebody comes to him with a good idea, Ange will change his mind and he'll alter things if he thinks the game requires it.
That adaptability that, once again, and this is the second time I've mentioned him on the show, so I hope he's tuning in. Russell Boyce mentioned that, the willingness to adapt when it's for the greater good, Lawrence, because I think the last gaffer who we'll be talking about after the game was not willing to adapt for anything or anyone.
John Kennedy?
I don't think he was a gaffer, mate.
No, listen, you've got to always be able to adapt to circumstances, haven't you? To take the best advantage of what's in front of you. So, although he's uncompromising in his philosophy, it doesn't mean, that on the park he's not going to adapt it. Whether we've kind of taken his uncompromising, this is the way I always play the game, as saying, oh, right, that guy's never going to adapt to a game as it unfolds in front of him. Maybe we've kind of read too much into that, He's got a track record as a winner. I'm pretty sure he's not done that throughout his career by refusing to say, look, this is game's changing here, I can tweak this or that.
Yeah.
This won't have been the first time that he's ever adapted. He's not just come to Celtic and then went, oh, I'll now learn to adapt. I think, we've probably maybe just read too much into his. This is philosophy and it's always going to be played this way.
Yeah.
But, one thing Hart's bringing, he's talking a lot on the park, but hats off to Tony Ralston and Stephen Welsh. When you watch the game, both of them are talking people through the game, giving instructions. And I don't think you can get too much of that apart, people communicating, which is something I think we probably lacked last season. There wasn't a lot of great communicators in the team. You didn't see a lot of that talking going on and speaking to each other while they're on the park.
No, you're right. And I mean, we can't get through a broadcast these days without mentioning Tony Ralston and Stephen Welsh, and quite rightly so, because they have been starring in recent weeks. And indeed, I think one of the errors, one of the very few errors that Ange has made so far is dropping Welsh when he did drop him for near Beaton. I think that was an error, and he's realised that as well. He's brought him back into the side. He's partnered today with Starfelt. Laura, a lot was made of a couple of, let's say, maybe ropey performances by Starfelt. I think when he came in, it was the usual. We were as delighted with him coming in as we have been with today's announcement for Juranovic coming and joining us. A couple of ropey performances, I guess, but, I think he actually played his way out of that the other night against Alkmaar. I think, if you were to look at the performance as a whole, yes, he made a couple of blunders in the first half, but he came on to a decent enough performance, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I think looking at Starfelt, you'd be silly to write him off at this stage. It's far too early to say that. But what I always see when I'm watching him is, I don't see a player who I necessarily think, oh, he's been a bad buy. I see a very nervous player. I see somebody who is struggling to settle into the way that he's being asked to play, and maybe struggling to settle, perhaps, wasn't quite aware of the size of the crowd he was going to be playing in front of, and the constant pressure to win in the Goldfish Bowl that we all talk about. So I personally think he needs just given a bit of the benefit of the doubt, and not everybody's going to come in and settle the way Kyogo's done. Not everybody's going to come in and settle the way other players do. Everybody's different, and I think he is maybe just going to take a bit of time to find his feet, but I do still believe that he will.
Yeah, I'm the same. A couple of shout outs for our viewers today. We've got Gerald McEwen coming in from YouTube. Come on, Hoops. Absolutely. Michael McKernan. Hail to you, Michael. Kyle Rattigan. Hail. And also Kakashi 777, who is a regular on these broadcasts. Hail to you as well. There's a few predictions coming in. Bobby Sutherland's been listening to Russell Boyce, 10-0 today. Well, listen, I've come in at games before feeling really confident that we're going to put in a performance, particularly after the last few weeks. I'm kind of feeling like that just now, but I'm always loath to say we're going to win 5-0, 6-0, 7-0, because this is a team, Lawrence, that came to Celtic Park last season and won for the first time in 30 years. I rate Jimmy Goodwin highly. I think that he gets his teams well drilled, well organised. They really work for him. And although Celtic are in a good vein of form, I think that, we're going to work as hard as ever to get a result today. How do you see it going, Lawrence?
Totally. You touched it. Jim Goodwin sets his teams up really well. They're hard to beat. I mean, they were the first team to beat last season's Invincibles, I believe, which is unusual, any team beating Invincibles. So, yeah, I think Goodwin will set up, time.
Invincible, yet you got beat. Is that the point you're making there, Lawrence? They're invincible, but they got beat.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
So I think Goodwin will set up tight. They're going to be hard to beat. They're really good at set pieces, which, last season we weren't the best at, and we're getting better at, defending. So it's something we're going to have to kind of be tight on, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Lawrence, just epitomising what we expect from Lawrence Conley when he joins us on the ACSOM Bulletin. Fantastic. I have been a big fan. I was a big fan of Jimmy Goodwin. Even when he was at Alloa, you could see the way that he was approaching his managerial career. Some people have likened him to Jack Ross. I think that's maybe just because he's taken the same path so far as Jack Ross. Ex-Celt as well, Jimmy Goodwin, and I've liked what I've seen so far of what he's done in management. However, when you see Celtic playing in such a rich vein of form as they are just now, it is night and day as to what state we were in last season when we faced them at Celtic Park and they beat us.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting actually. Just in preparation for today to get a bit of a feel of how things were at that time, I actually went back and watched the post-match of that we did, and that I was actually on as well, covering the 2-1 defeat to St Mirren. And I think it was me and a couple of other people on that pointed out the difference between Jimmy Goodwin and Neil Lennon at the time. I mean, Neil's very open to talking about other people's attitudes, but you saw the difference between his attitude and Jim Goodwin's attitude on the touchline last time. We talked about how Jim Goodwin was barking orders at his team consistently and just making lots of runs, but or lots of calls on the line. I'll just fix my camera a wee second. But I think that he will be a big miss today. I think he's not on the touchline because of COVID or something like that. So it's possibly going to be an issue for St Mirren to keep that intensity that they showed against us last season. But I think he's going to be a big miss for them. I think he's a great coach. I think he can still do a lot more with them going forward. But having said that, I don't see, given the way they've started the season, I don't see them being too much of an issue for us today.
I think it's a great point, that, Laura, because he is so influential from the sidelines, and I think that's something we missed last season from our management team. That ability to, actually influence what's happening in front of you. You've seen that with previous managers at Celtic. I didn't see it last season. Chaz comes in to point out, good to see Christie in at that number 10 role, same position he set up Kyogo for his hat-trick with that incredible pass. Such an exciting attacking lineup today. Now, before we move into the kind of offensive areas of the park, Lawrence, yourself and Kevin Graham have been big champions of Greg Taylor. He didn't have his best night the other night. He's still in, and let's be honest, he's got to play, hasn't he? Because when you look at the other options that we have, you've got Adam Montgomery, young Montgomery on the bench, who, by the way, I've never failed to be impressed with him in any of the appearances that I've seen, either last season when he was thrown in, pre-season this time round, and the cameo appearances that he's had in the first team this season, Lawrence. So he is most definitely the second choice left back at the moment, third choice being ball and goalie, and we kind of hope that in the next 10 days or so, a deal is done to remove him from Celtic Park as well. But Taylor is the first choice. Against domestic opposition, you believe that he's a good enough first choice for Celtic at left back?
Well, definitely. He's got good stats for us. We don't, as you touched on, we don't really have any other option. Although Montgomery's been impressive, you don't think he's yet at the level of Taylor. Taylor's still at 22, 23. He's got opportunities going to develop under Ange. Wasn't his best game against Alkmaar, but so far this season, two players that have been singled out for praise by the gaffer are Tony Ralston and Greg Taylor. So they're asked to do a lot more than most fullbacks in this team. So he's going to benefit with, I think, we having Christie in front of him. They seem to link up well. So, yeah, listen, it's Taylor, and I don't know if we will address it this transfer window or we'll bring in someone else, because I don't think it's going to be Bongali. I think his time's finished. Montgomery seems to be covering right up the left flank, doesn't he, just now? So whether it's for Taylor or left-hand side of the midfield, or we could probably be bringing someone in, but I suppose that a lot of that will depend on if Eddie goes out and how much money there is.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right there. Stephen comes in. Stephen McGonigal, welcome to the show, Stephen. You're watching on YouTube. Anyone else watching on that platform, make sure you subscribe, because you will be in the prize draw for monthly prizes. Next month, it will be weekly prizes. We're giving away 4 prizes in September, but this month, it's a Fratelli's Platinum disc. Beautiful. We're going to try and get it signed as well, Lawrence, because you know a man that knows a man that might be able to get it signed. So, yeah, absolutely. And Stephen makes the point. New right back now in, but what about the left back? That's the problem position, surely. Absolutely, Stephen. I think that's part of the conversation today. Laura, we've ticked off the right back issue. It became less of an issue the more Ralston performed well in that position, but we still needed a right back. Do you now think it's centre half, left back, forward, not necessarily in that order?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, especially if Eddie's going to go, striker's got to take some sort of priority, because if Eddie goes and Furuhashi picks up a knock or something like that, we're in real trouble as far as up front's concerned, assuming that Lee Griffiths is going to get nowhere near the first team. So, yeah, I think for me, forward takes priority, but I have to say, and me and Jim were in a bit of disagreement on this in the Friday Bulletin yesterday, but I think Greg Taylor is fine for domestic football. I think he's of a decent enough standard in that sense, but I don't think if as Kevin Graham often says, Europe is to be our barometer, I don't think he seems to have what it takes to step up to that level. So I would say for me it goes striker, left back, and then centre back in that order to try and sort of sort out.
The thing, Laura, and a slight concern that I have in that respect, I mean, at the beginning of the season, we were talking about the cover at left back, and we were talking about Leo Held being in amongst that, because he played in the pre-season. Lawrence, of course, a big fan of Leo Held. It looks as though he's on his way out the building, but we're bringing in Liam Scales, and quite a few people have come in to describe the type of player he is, and the fact that he can also play left back, So I think when he comes in, there may well be a shift in priorities, because he can cover left back and centre half. So the centre forward then may become a priority depending on what happens with Eddie. We will be talking about the the suggestion that Lee Griffiths may be going to Hibs and Kevin Nisbet might be coming in our direction. Laura Bradburn has already offered to take Lee to Leith and pick up Nisbet and bring him to Celtic Park. And I think a few other fans would also be in front of you in that queue, Laura. We'll talk about all of that after the game. We'll also be talking, Terence Pat, about Neil Lennon blaming all and sundry for last season on not doing the 10. And yeah, he should take responsibility, but he never will. He will never take responsibility for what happened last season. And he will take every opportunity to down-cry the very fans that put him on a pedestal for a number of years when he was a player and a manager at Celtic Park. So let's have a wee look at the offensive nature of this team then, Lawrence. We start off through the midfield: McGregor, Turnbull, Abada, Christie, Kyogo, Edward. That's a frightening proposition for any team in Scotland. And I think the question always is, where do they play? But we spoke about it on the group chat on the way through. That can rotate. That can rotate in-game. You've got Abada who can play right and left as well as through the middle. Kyogo can play left and through the middle. Christie who can play left, right and centre. That, for me, the adaptability is crucial, particularly when you look at the bench, because the bench isn't the strongest.
Yeah, definitely. On the left-hand side, I think, we could just now, maybe that's another position we might be looking to bring someone in for, but it's going to be brilliant being able to rotate them in game. Obviously, St Mirren are well drilled, but it makes it harder for them to know who they're picking up. Sometimes it's okay to say you pick up the centre, you pick up the right winger. Well, what happens when they start moving about? How long does it take them to adapt? If Jim Goodwin's not there, to spot it quicker and point it out to them. Christie's just been unbelievable, and I think no matter what, we've kind of got to keep him at Christmas now, even if an offer comes in, because you're not going to get much for 4 or 5 months his contract that's left. There's not much left to say about Kyogo, is there? If we can get Eddie back to anything like the player he can be, it could be a really exciting season. Because the rumours are he's asking for too much wages for him to get a move. The window's getting closer and closer. So, if we end up stuck with him, it couldn't be the worst. I'm pretty sure Ange can get performances out of him. It wouldn't be the worst thing to end up stuck with a player of his ability.
If it goes down that road, Lawrence, I'm going to throw this one over to you, Laura, and we will be talking about part of this equation at the end of the game. If it goes down the road whereby Eddie's demands are so high that a club, let's say down south, because that seems to be the likely destination, a club down south are unwilling to pay Celtic's asking price and the demands of the player. If that is the case, and he remains at Celtic, and we're not going to get a transfer fee for him, and Ange can get the best out of him between now and then, right? And in the meantime, we utilise someone who's in the squad who's a waste of a wage at the moment because he's contributing absolutely zero. And in actual fact, I said less than zero because he's bringing more negative than positive to the table. And you can do a swap deal plus cash for Lee Griffiths. Even if I don't know what the cash would be. What are they looking for Nisbet? Is it 3.5 to 4 million? I think they're probably looking. So, what value did you place on Lee Griffiths? Is he making up £1 million of that? Maybe at this moment in time. That there, if you're spending 2.5 to 3 million quid on Nisbet, and you're also offloading a problematic issue, when, let's be honest, we don't have many negative influences at the moment at Celtic Park, then you run with Eddie. That seems to be the best for all concerned, even though we're not going to get the transfer fee for Hossein Edouard.
Yeah, I think the slightly negative impact that Edouard's having just now is just the uncertainty over his future. That completely goes out the window if the transfer window closes and he's still here, because he knows then that at least until January he's not going anywhere, kind of thing. So if I have to say, I'm surprised if he's requesting so much money that an English Premier League team couldn't pay it. I don't know what the figures are that would be involved that would make that the case, or whether they just don't think he particularly is worth it. But I do agree with Lawrence, that seems to be the issue. But I think if it got to the end of the transfer window, he knew he was here to January, he knows that he's not going anywhere, and knuckles down and enjoys his football as he actually seems to be under Ange at the moment. I think we all know his quality and that we can get the best for him. As for the Lee Griffiths, Kevin Nisbet deal, as you said, I'm more than willing to do whatever it takes to get Lee Griffiths out of the club. And I said before he signed his contract that I didn't agree with the contract coming in. And Kevin Nisbet, again, I don't know how much he would help us in Europe, but he would certainly be more than adequate standard domestically, especially playing in a team that's playing the way we are at the moment.
You know, this is the big thing. You look at the transformation, and some of the players are starting today, Lawrence, of players such as Ralston. He's an obvious one. Also, Ryan Christie returning to the team today. Tommy Rogic, who drops to the bench. Again, probably good management of Tommy Rogic. Drops him at the bench. The transformation in these players, and probably Callum McGregor as well, compared to the performances last season. I think what you do is you look at Nisbet, you look where he is. And I've said on ACSOM a number of times, I didn't think he was the player for Celtic. I didn't think that he could make the step up. So many players domestically haven't made that step up. Stand to be corrected. There's the Ange factor to throw into the mix now, which completely changes my view on it, because I'm now thinking, well, if Ange could work his magic on a player like Kevin Nisbet, is he ever going to be European class? Well, you know, who knows? Let's put him up to that challenge. He's stepped up for Scotland. You know, he stepped up on an international level. He scored for his country. We're going to be talking about this in more depth, but, you know, I just think you throw that Ange factor in, Lawrence, and it gives it a completely different hue when you're talking about incoming players.
Oh, definitely. That and having fans back at the stadium. But, yeah, Nisbet, you know, he moved to Dunfermline. He raised his game. He moved to Hibs. He raised his game. You've touched on it. He's played and scored for Scotland now. So he seems to be stepping up as he steps up the levels. He's got a great work rate, which is something that Ange looks for, isn't it? You know, he's young, he's got room to develop. I don't see a downside to that deal if it's, you know, 2.4 million in Griffiths for Nisbet. It moves a very divisive character among the Celtic support out of the club. Brings in someone young that hopefully Ange can develop further. Yeah. So let's hope we get that over the line. That would be great to see.
I hope so. We will be touching more on that at the end of the game, Laura, which is about to kick off. We will be back at half-time to give you our views on the first half performance. I've got to thank everybody for getting involved here. You're keeping a Celtic state of mind right up there when it comes to viewing figures. The community that's been built over 4 years, but in particular over the last year, has been absolutely astonishing. So thanks for tuning in on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Twitch, and everywhere else we are streaming to now. Get involved. Let us know your thoughts on the first half at half-time. All that's left for me to say is Lawrence Conley, Laura Bradburn, thank you for joining me again on A Celtic State of Mind.